tuning in. I'm Atul Patel, CEO of Orbee, and I'm here at NADA 2024. I'm here with Alex Schaeffer from Avis Budget Group's RubyCar.
That's right.
So I'd love to hear about what you're up to and talk about your background, because I think it's fascinating where you came and what you're doing now.
Yeah, good to be with you. Thanks for having me. We're doing some exciting things, at least I like to think so. My background is OEM.
Yeah.
I spent 17 years in marketing and sales at Ford Motor Company.
Got it.
Cut my teeth in auto there, and then as of late, for the past 7 or 8 years, have been in online retail. I joined Avis Budget Group about 1.5 years ago, and have stood up a online car sales business where we take late model vehicles, we recondition them to full certified standard, and we find customers online and sell our cars retail.
Got it. How did the RubyCar name come to be? I never asked you that.
We get asked that quite a bit. We like to think that we pull the gems out of the Avis fleet.
Ah, got it.
So
okay.
we pride ourselves in taking the best of the best out of the fleet and making those available direct to consumer.
Gotcha. So being such a big brand like Avis Budget Group, I rent cars with you guys. You have access to a lot of customer data, a lot of sort of relationships that you guys have formed over many years. How does that affect what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. Unlike some of the first movers in the online sales space, we have a very different model, very different cost structure, and we get to rely on the backbone of Avis.
Yeah.
We are a startup in some senses, but in other senses, we're a national company that's been around for 75 years.
Yep.
And that comes with great brand equity, and it also comes with a giant customer base.
Yeah. And so that's where data mining and finding the right people that you want to engage at the right time is important.
Absolutely.
So you have a vast set of data that is everything from their history and if I rent a certain kind of vehicle and I rent it where I live, that kind of tells you something.
Right.
That maybe I'm renting because I'm in between buying a car or something like that. Is that the kind of scenario that you're applying?
Exactly. And unlike a traditional dealer who might have a CRM with 10, 20 years of business, we don't have that, but we do have this giant rental car database.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of signals like the one you just mentioned. And we get to leverage those millions of users and try to figure out when they're in market and introduce our brand and our experience.
Now, once you do have this audience and you've put it together, this is where you have to have an audience tool, and that's why we work together, right?
Yep.
So we could actually cut up that audience into different signals.
Exactly.
But then where it really gets interesting for you guys, especially because the brand, you get to go out to more places than just your typical Google ads and Facebook ads. You're doing some really cool things with like benefit portals. Talk a little bit about that, because I find that extremely fascinating.
Yeah, it's been fun. We, yes, we play in all the traditional media spaces, if you will, but we also leverage these giant partners that we have at Avis, right? There are, like an OEM actually, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of them. And so the one that you've mentioned, we've dabbled a little bit in the corporate perks, work perks.
And just to be clear, that's when I'm an employee, and I used to use my dad's Boeing perks. Yep. So I'd log into the portal, and there'd be 10% off Dell, or so you're actually in there.
Correct. Yeah. So PerkSpot is a good example of one that we're in today, and it's interesting because yes, you might work at Boeing or Deloitte or one of the hundreds or thousands of employers that they work with, but interestingly, you might also be an Avis customer.
Right.
So there's this intersection between, yes, they're a corporate discount member, but they also are an Avis renter, and so it gives us a different angle to introduce ourselves to that potential customer.
That's incredible, yeah, and I think those kinds of opportunities, those are new frontiers that you're able to push because you're a brand, but also because you've kind of brought that OEM experience to the table, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, once they come, so we've talked about the mining of the customers, finding the right times. We talked about how you get them back. And then you're doing some really exciting things around that sort of checkout process. So you're really trying to qualify customers earlier in the funnel versus just incubating user activity for no reason. Let's talk about that digital retailing flow and how you're doing it and the partners you're using for that.
Yeah, so like I said, we are online sales. We like to think that most of our customers come all the way through, through a hard pull, happy path Reality is, right, if you're selling cars, you know that's not true, at least not yet. And so there is a process as that customer, gets with us in the upper funnel stage and hopefully comes down lower funnel. And yes, most of the journeys, not all, but most start with a soft pull, allow a customer to self-structure their deal. And as they're doing that, as they're adding a guaranteed trade value, looking up any payoff amount, they're picking their payments and beginning to calculate tax and fees.
Right.
Right. We are then looking at deal structure, and we're also looking at past deals and how we've decisioned paper, and we have some lending automation that routes those into our preferred lenders.
Now, so the volume is tremendous. So you see a lot of stats basically, and you could track the steps down the funnel.
Yeah.
So someone comes to the form, maybe abandons the form altogether, or they go deeper into the funnel and they've got qualified. So now they're qualified, but they're not ready to buy. And you can actually start to segment those people and reach out to them, engage with them differently, right? On-site, off-site, and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, and that's a lot of those signals, what I see in the industry is a lot of those signals are wasted, right? But what we've been able to do is every step of the way, there's some sort of tracking. And so, but what's unique about you guys, I guess, is the volume of activity. Because, I've heard Amazon being able to do A/B testing within 5 minutes, right? They're like, should we put this on the homepage? Let's try it for 5 minutes. And they'll already know. So you kind of do have, obviously not that scale, but you do have the ability to try different things and different user flows. Is that what you expect to do over time?
Yeah, I think, you hit the nail on the head. We're slicing our audiences up, in many ways, testing and trying to do A/B tests to make sure that at the end of the day we have efficient customer acquisition, spend. And the most obvious example, which we've been working on recently, is if somebody comes and their soft credit declined, right, we can then quickly turn that into a suppression audience and spend that money elsewhere. So there are dozens of ways that we're working on cutting up that data, and at the end of the day, getting more efficient.
Yeah, well, it's been fun working with you and collaborating and getting to know you and your business. So thanks for coming by and chatting.
Absolutely.
All right.
Best of luck to you guys.
All right, thank you. All right.